Can I introduce you to Karen Hubbard? Do you want to wave? Karen's the CEO of Card Factory. Thanks for being with us, Karen. We've got CJ Antle-Smith from the Co-op, Trading Director. Thank you. Katrina Nurse, all the way from London to the north, CFO Selfridges, and Madeline Thompson, who's our leader of industry here for retail and consumer at PwC.
A lot of what I do is through relationships. Women are brilliant at relationships. And the more success and more energy you put into it, the better you get. And interestingly, men don't put anywhere near as much of themselves into the relationship. They possibly put more time into it because actually we've often got lots of other time to do. But for them, it's a less authentic way, I often find. And you can get you know, to the essence of something really quickly if you're prepared to share a bit.
I work in an industry where there's a very healthy mix of females. Having said that, I work in a profession that when I started was 99.9% male, and I was the only female accountant in the Debenhams finance team when I joined it. I have to say the shift has gone completely the other way now, and probably my team's about 70% female and 30% male, and I actually have to actively go out and try and find some guys to join the team.
And as I've gone through my career, I think when I look at the sponsors I've had and the people that have mentored or coached me, I've learned a lot from them, and a lot of them have been male, to be fair. And I don't think that's a bad balance to have. To your point, it's not all about what you learn from females. And I do think that you get different skills, but I do think it is as well about just being true to yourself.
My advice to anybody coming through is think carefully about your own development and what you want to do rather than what you think you need to do for your career. And I think if people stay focused on what they're really passionate about more than what's the next job, I think you will end up where your talent really lies. So I think for me that's sort of been the thing that's taken me on my journey.
I'd like to ask you girls, how if you were going back to my point in the career I am now, how did you stay true to yourself and be a woman successfully rather than having to change to fit the mould?
Yeah.
Yep.
You're 100% right, because why have a diverse board if at the end of the day we all end up sounding and looking the same?
Yeah,
so you are absolutely right on that. So that it is that quality that makes us different.
Sadly, I think a number of senior men are now being directed by their daughters, which is sad that it's taken them that long before they're affected. But I know a number of my colleagues in PwC are more influenced by what they want to create for their daughters, because their daughters, by and large, have got a very strong voice. So that's certainly something that I've noticed in the last 10 years. Most senior men these days are in some kind of network that is talking about diversity. And therefore, you're not going to be far away from someone that can, and that's what the power of events like this, network like crazy. It's something that you can't start doing soon enough.
How do you overcome that feedback that could potentially mean you changing, going away from true to who you are, when the person giving you the feedback can impact your position in the organisation or any career progression?
I think it's about making it personal to you, but making sure that you actually tackle that feedback head on, because you might hear a certain piece of feedback and then make it something it's completely not. You'll go from here down to here. They need to bring it back to here again and understand exactly what provoked those comments or what the thought was behind it.
I'm really curious around what have you experienced by the way of men in your arena in terms of either resenting the fact that you're a woman or feeling threatened by it. How have you managed that? Have you experienced it, and how have you managed it?
There are some men that can't handle it, and I think that you choose to deal with it, and I think you do come across them from time to time, and you just know they've got this inherent view, and I just think that you just get on with it. It could be a male or a female, but when people misjudge you, and they do make you start doubting your own ability, and I think that's probably the worst thing that I've had. And that does take you quite often a long time to recover. And I think, but it's probably as relevant for men as it is for women. And I think that's a really bad trait that some people have. And I think it's because they are insecure.
Karen, you talked about one of the challenges facing the city. First, I've got a question, which is, what has that been like? And secondly, when you've had a challenge, all of you, how have you dealt with it?
My biggest learning is I don't think there's anything any issue you're ever going to come across that somebody else hasn't faced. I think the challenge is feeling confident enough to put your hand up and ask.
I would probably always say, we all come from, whatever industry you're in, you come from a position of strength and knowledge in your field. And, when you move into the arena of a place where maybe that whole thing of that person's smarter than me because they know about the city, just think about it for a minute, they probably haven't a clue about the world that you live in.
How helpful do you think, or how big a part do you think mentoring has played in your succession, in your career path? And what would you recommend looking for in a successful mentor relationship?
The other question to ask you is who's sponsoring you. So if you are really ambitious and you think you want to get to the top of the organisation, you have two roles to look for. One is the mentor, who I think the role is to be honest about where they think you need help, where they think you're great at, and directing you necessarily in the right direction. So, maybe saying, look, I'm not the right person for you, talk to that person. Then you want to know who your sponsor is. So who's the person who's sitting in that, talent discussion that says we're at Shop Direct, we're trying to find our next commercial director. And you want to know who it is that puts your name forward and says, I stake my career on that individual. And I think it's really important that you don't confuse the two. Because a lot of people speak to me about, oh, Karen, will you mentor me? And by the way, what jobs have you got going? And I'm like, no, wrong thing here.
I think it's important with mentors as well. I mean, I've had a lot of mentors and I think they are massively important in influencing you. But once the relationship's run its course and you realise that potentially you're not getting that much out of it because you might get a bit comfortable with each other and it becomes more of a how you doing type session, that's when it's time to kind of say, look, I'm now going to, or you've reached your goal with them, you might need to stretch yourself and go further afield.
I think particularly for me, that analysis between what should a sponsor type figure do. So I'd encourage you to not necessarily pick sponsors that you like, sponsors that you admire, might be more significant. So what I mean, the difference there is you might not be like that person, but by jolly, they've worked out how to work the organisation you're in or cut through some aspect of it. And the way in which they do it might not be what you want to be like, but don't be blind to that, because actually you will do that differently and with confidence and with authenticity. And that's your mentor's role to help you do that.